in our good buddy Brandon Kravitz from out there down I-4. I got it, man. I was so excited when the news broke yesterday or the day before. I've been sick like the last 2.5 days. I was in New York visiting my family. And for the last couple of days with my nieces and nephews running around like maniacs, you know it being a dad. You know when the kids get crazy like that. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, what the hell's going on with Gus Malzahn? Why the hell would he do this? And I go, there's only one person that can answer this question. My guy, Brandon Kravitz. BK, I appreciate you. You're the man. I appreciate it. We'll talk about what you got going on with our guy, Zach Blobner. So excited that you guys are getting together. First off, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. What was your thought process when the news of Gus Malzahn leaving UCF to take that job at Florida State? It's just never a dull moment in sports, is it?
No, and I have more to work with today than I think I've ever had going into a Monday show. I'm about 2 hours away from showtime myself, and I for the first time in my career, I actually made a ranking. Ooh. I ranked the topics. I'm at like 10 that I feel like on any given day I could feel really good about opening a show with. It's a good problem to have. There's no chance I get to all of it today, so hopefully you and I can scratch some of these itches here together. But that's definitely the open. You know, when a coach gets fired, that usually zooms to the top of the list. My first thought, do you ever see The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. You know, at the end when the witch dies and those, I don't know what they call the knights that protect her, her castle, they start dancing. They're ding dong, the witches. That's kind of how I felt. It's nothing personal against Gus Malzahn. I've lived through stages of UCF growth.
Right.
I went there in 2005, and I graduated from UCF. I went to UCF games when they didn't have a stadium on campus, and people went to games, backs to the field, don't even know why they were there. I mean, I've seen it all. To go from that to the undefeated season in 2017, followed up with 2018, there was so much momentum that had been built in this program, making it into the Big 12. You made it to the big time, and it felt like Gus Malzahn was driving this bus in reverse. He just wasn't the right guy for the job. I never liked the hire to begin with. It didn't fit the personality of UCF. This is a forward-thinking program. They're sort of the college football disruptor. You know, you think of like those Silicon Valley startups, like that's kind of the vibe that I felt proud of with what UCF had become. And Gus Malzahn was just parachuting in from a stressful job in the SEC to take this one. It just never felt like it was going to work. It stalled out, and I'm glad that the program made the decision that they did. And honestly, and now I have a completely different opinion of Gus. They should probably build a statue for this guy. Tell him to pay his buyout.
It's so funny you said that about the startups. Like for me, UCF is like Shark Tank, Silicon Valley, like they're the sharks, right? And here comes Gus, like an old blowfish, just coming along, moving on all slow, looking around like, oh, that's great. And just goes through. So it seems like the UCF kind of narrative is like, this is kind of solving a problem, right? With him leaving, because it was always a fast offense, multiple running backs, quarterbacks that can do a lot with their, the Mackenzie Milton days and the Dylan Gabriel days. And you're looking around like, oh my God, if you blink, they're going to put up 3 or 4 touchdowns on you. And then here comes Gus, Big 12. You need to almost stay on the precipice of being cutting edge. And now it's a big time step back, but you're looking at this, and I'm sure a lot of other UCF guys are looking at it like this could be, I don't even say a blessing in disguise. This is just a blessing out front.
It's just a blessing because I think they wanted to fire him. And in any other year, even though it's expensive to do so, I think they would have been able to justify it financially. His buyout was $13 million. But the thing is that in today's college football world, if you pay that to a coach, that's money that's not going to build up your roster. Right. And UCF is not at the point where they can – oh, good. They're not at the point yet where they can shoot themselves in the wallet like that. UCF is trending in the right direction. They've made all the right steps over the years. They're not Florida. They're not Florida State. Those programs have been established. Their boosters are wealthier. They have more of them. UCF isn't at that point yet. So they're still trying to fill up the bank account so that they can make those big moves. Like Ohio State can fire Ryan Day, and whatever his buyout is, ridiculous $20 million or whatever, drop in the bucket for Ohio State. It won't change anything. For UCF, they had to pay Gus Malzahn $13 million not to work. They'd have a really hard time paying players. So, yeah, huge blessing because he walks away and doesn't take any of that money. I think he just wanted out of the job because he realized this program doesn't want me. I don't really enjoy this CEO role that it now exists for coaches in college football. It's not like he's an old, crusty man. I think he has sort of old ideals in terms of college football, but 60 years old, when you've already dealt with almost 10 years at Auburn, disappointing seasons at UCF, where I don't even think he realized how passionate this fan base was when he took the job. It's just like, I think he throws up his hands and says enough. I want to be a coach that calls plays, and I want to be left the hell alone. And that's why he didn't take the buyout.
When I saw this move, and I'm so glad that you do work with the Orlando Magic, you do a great job there. What a story they are. I almost feel like when you look at NBA benches and you see all these former head coaches, they look so happy, right?
Yeah.
They're still there. They're still getting paid. It's usually a bunch of point guards. I feel like I've seen Sam Cassell and Scott Brooks and all these different people on the bench, and they're just chilling. Like, yeah, I love that I don't have to deal with all these personalities. I don't have to draw plays. I can go in there and I can shoot around. And I can just talk shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like
they're never on the hot seat, Jay.
Ever. So I feel like Gus is like, oh, look what Chip Kelly's doing. Like, I think you're going to see more and more of that, especially at the collegiate level of, I don't want to deal with all of this. If you're telling me I can get a nice cushy job, I can stay for a while, and I can kind of be like a pseudo assistant, associate head coach, and then call plays, whether it's offensively or defensively, I think you're going to see more people take that path of least resistance like Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, and I think Ben Johnson, the OC for the Detroit Lions, hopefully he's listening to us right now because you might want to heed this warning. You got a good job, man. Don't go running for a job where they're going to hate you in 3 years because you didn't make Caleb Williams the next Patrick Mahomes. I think you're 100% right, and that's credit to Gus Malzahn. I think it does take a certain life perspective to have your priorities straight to say, I know that I could earn more money by being properly fired and then sit my ass on the couch and just count my dollars, but I want to enjoy my quality of life. And it's not like being the OC at Florida State is going to put you on the street begging for dollars. So it's credit to him for realizing that. I think it's something, hey, trickle down to what we do. I know that what you and Zach just went through was career-wise pretty traumatic, but I think it does allow a bit of perspective. Even someone like me who somehow is in this building, it allows a bit of perspective where you go, you got to make sure you're taking care of number one first. Don't worry about what's popping up on the paycheck. If you're not happy, then what does it really matter? And it seems like Gus at least has that perspective. So I respect the man. I respect the decision that he made. I respect the decision that UCF was going to be forced to make and didn't have to. And now we get to move on with the process.
So I guess the big question now, BK, is who's next? Who do you want? Who's that guy? If you had your ideal pick, is there a guy that you have, or is it just one of those things we're going to have to wait? You never know what to believe in social media. If one guy gets one prediction right, and then the next 90, he's totally wrong. Somebody's like, yeah, UCF already has their guy. What do you know? What can you tell us? What do you think?
Yeah, so you got a couple of options out there. The Tulane head coach, John Summerall, is a guy that's going to be bantered about. They're a top 20 team right now, and this is the beauty of being in the Big 12 is Tulane to UCF used to not be a step up. Now it is because they're in different levels of college football. I think he fits the personality perfectly. He's in his mid-40s, kind of went through the ranks. He was an OC at Troy, and they've had their success over the years. I don't know a lot about him other than the fact that his career arc is exactly the kind of guy I would have given the stamp of approval to had they hired him in the first place rather than go through the whole Gus experience.
Right.
Will Stein would be another one. He's the OC at Oregon. So, I mean, how much – I guess, well, Dan Lanning is he's more of a defensive mind, so perhaps we should give him some credit. The reason why I pause on that is Oregon has done a really good job of bringing in the top talent, some of the top talent in the country. And so how much of his success is based on the players as opposed to what he's doing? I'm a little more impressed when I see somebody at a school that shouldn't necessarily be succeeding, and yet they are, but still he's a guy based on age and offensive acumen and all of that. I think he would fit perfectly. And then you also have a guy by the name of G.J. Kinney, who I think a lot of people are thinking is going to end up as the next head coach at UCF. He was the OC and quarterback coach for UCF back in 2021. He's at Texas State right now, and I'm hearing a lot of rumors that he could be the next guy. The people that I've talked to say that it's kind of already a done deal, but I'm not willing to go that far just yet. But those would be three names I would keep an eye on.
How are things going with the Orlando Magic, man? I know Paolo being out was a little crippling, but man, to be able to see what they've been able to do this year, it's got to be pretty encouraging.
It's crazy because when he went down, you kind of felt this gut punch and we're like, oh yeah, this is why the team was able to be successful last year. They were able to avoid the injury bug. And that is, for Magic fans, that is like every fan base has the thing that has crippled your entire the franchise's existence.
Right.
And injuries is that for the Magic. I mean, you can go back to Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill, and it goes on and on. Gilbert Arenas. Like it felt like every time the Magic took one step forward, somebody important would get hurt, and it would derail what their future could hold. Now, last year they were healthy and they took the right strides and they finished as the 5 seed, and you took Cleveland to a 7th game. It was you kind of hit all the notes that you wanted to hit last year and being just a little bit better than even the most optimistic fan would think. You roll that into this year, the team picks up right where they left off, and then boom, you get smacked with the Paolo injury and a 2-month timetable on he's not going to be reevaluated for 4 to 6 weeks. And that doesn't mean he's back. That means that's when they'll take a look at his injury for the first time. So it was definitely a gut punch. The team had started hot, and then they lost 5 in a row, and it felt like, man, you didn't even – maybe you realized how good Paolo was, but you realize it even more now. Well, since then, the Magic are 12-1 in their last 13 games. Franz Wagner's been completely unlocked. He has become the guy for this team. He's a legitimate all-star. I think he's going to win Player of the Month for November. That news could come down any moment now, but I would anticipate that he is going to win that award for the Eastern Conference. This team's been incredible, and I think it starts with the head coach, Jamal Mosley. He has instilled an identity of defense, sharing the basketball, and if this team could just start hitting their threes consistently, I legitimately think they're one of the best teams in the NBA. Because right now they feel like one of the best teams in the league. They are 30th of 30 teams in 3-point shooting percentage. And that's like not being able to throw the football in the NFL and still being 12-1 in your last 13 games. It doesn't compute. And they get to add Paolo Banchero back to the mix, who's a top 15 player in the NBA. And that should happen right around Christmas. So what a present that will be.
It's a beautiful thing, and they're undefeated at home. So I'm sure that you being in attendance has a lot to do with it. 9-0 at home, the only undefeated team at home in the association.
Jay, I feel I'm sorry. I know as somebody who attends every Tampa Bay Lightning game, I know that you can appreciate this. So where we're set up with the radio crew, we're up on the club level. It's like perfect 50-yard line view of the court. You're up a couple of levels. You have that bird's eye view, but to our right is the road radio crew. And every single post-game show that I host, I'm up here gloating, projecting my voice in celebration because I haven't had to break down a loss at home yet.
Yeah,
and
man.
I get these road guys, like they're salty, they're pissed, they have to hop on a plane and go back to whatever sorry city they're from. And I just get to sit there and give out some Papa John's promo code. This is great. It's like I feel a little guilty, but it also feels good.
No, man, listen, the majority of the times we're doing post-game shows, it's usually not great, right? There's been a lot more negative and a lot more of losses that we discuss rather than the win. So enjoy it for as long as you can, brother. It doesn't last forever. Trust me, I know with the Lightning. Oh, yeah, they won back-to-back cups. This is going to happen forever. Then they lose the next year. They can't even get out of the first round now. So Man, Brandon, you are the best. At Brandon Kravitz on Twitter /X, live on In the Zone 3 to 6 96.9 The Game. Let everybody know real quick, 30 seconds, what you got going on with our guy Zach Blobner.
Yeah, so I had fired up my own podcast feed about a year ago and just been trying to fine tune what the personality of that is going to be. You know, being in this industry, having a live show on terrestrial radio is not enough. You got to have something else. There are people that don't even listen to live radio anymore. So to have that podcast format that is strictly for those listeners was important. And, you know, this is sort of the gift that is given by the curse of what happened to you and Zach, which was a travesty. And I loved listening to your show. You guys were on right before me, so I was able to listen to you in studio before I would go live because I loved the tandem and the stuff that you guys would talk about. I thought that you were, in my opinion, you and Zach were like the future of that's what sports talk was turning into, and I loved it. And I'm trying to do that exact same thing in Orlando. So that when he became a free agent, I said, we're signing that dude. And it is now the Zone Heads podcast with Brandon and Zach. Post a new episode every Wednesday afternoon. So keep it locked for that. We give you covered across the I-4 corridor, everything going on in Orlando and in Tampa. And given everything that happened this weekend, we have plenty of content to get to on Wednesday.
You got it, man. All right, at Brandon Kravitz 96.9 The Game, the Zone Heads podcast with our guy Zach Blobner. BK, I appreciate it, man. I know you got to get ready for your show. We'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
All right, see you, Jay.